Gas prices pushing nearly $4 on average across the nation as pressure grows with the Strait of Hormuz effectively closed.
The last time you filled your car with gas, somebody decided how much you paid. Not your government, not OPEC, not the oil company whose logo was on the gas station. 3 power centers you have never heard of, operating in rooms you will never see, made decisions that week that determined the number on the pump. None of them elected, none of them interviewed, none of them on the news. By the end of this video you will know what they are. But first you need to understand the 33 kilometers of water that gave them their power. You are watching Who Runs Everything. The Strait of Hormuz is a narrow channel of ocean between the coast of Iran and the coast of Oman. At its thinnest point it is 33 kilometers wide. That is roughly the distance between downtown Manhattan and JFK Airport. Through that strip of water moves 27% of the world's seaborne oil trade. Every tanker from Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, the UAE, Qatar, and Iraq heading to Asia, Europe, or the Americas has to pass through it. There is no alternative route out of the Persian Gulf by sea. For 40 years, Iran understood that controlling this narrow channel meant controlling something more powerful than any army. The threat did not need to be carried out to be effective. Every time Western governments tightened sanctions on Tehran, every time diplomatic pressure reached a peak, Iranian officials would deliver the same reminder. We can close this strait. We can remove 27% of global oil supply from the market in 24 hours. Do not push us. The threat worked because the consequences of following through were so catastrophic for every economy on Earth, including Iran's own trading partners, that nobody believed Tehran would actually do it. 40 years of leverage built on a gun that nobody thought would ever be fired. On February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel fired first airstrikes on Iranian military infrastructure, command centers, missile sites, the assassination of Ali Khamenei, Iran's supreme leader. The calculation was that removing Iran's leadership would destabilize the IRGC fast enough to prevent a coordinated military response. The calculation was wrong. Within 72 hours, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps deployed fast attack boats, naval mines, and drone swarms into the strait. Within 4 days, 47 oil tankers had altered course or dropped anchor outside the Gulf. By March 4, 2026, the IRGC formally confirmed the strait was closed to what they called unfriendly nations. Brent crude surged 8.7% in a single session. War risk insurance premiums for Persian Gulf routes reached levels not seen since the Iran-Iraq tanker war of the 1980s. The gun had been fired. And then something happened that the war coverage completely missed. The IRGC started letting some ships through. Not all ships. Not neutral ships automatically. Specific ships. Ships from specific countries. Ships whose operators had made specific arrangements. Within 2 weeks of the closure, Lloyd's List, the most authoritative maritime intelligence publication in the world, documented vessels transiting the strait under what it described as a private registration and vetting arrangement operated by the IRGC. In documented cases, payment formed part of the arrangement. In others, the exact terms were not publicly known. What was clear was that passage through the strait was no longer governed by international maritime law. It was governed by negotiation. The IRGC had not closed the strait. They had monetized it. Here is how the system worked. A shipping company seeking to move a vessel through the strait submitted its cargo details and vessel registration to an IRGC vetting process. If the company's home country had an existing diplomatic or commercial relationship with Iran, the negotiation was simpler. If it did not, the company negotiated directly. Payment channels and recipients were not publicly disclosed. What Lloyd's List confirmed was the outcome. Some ships moved, others did not. The countries whose operators adapted fastest were not American allies. Ships linked to China and India were among the earliest to receive approved clearance. Chinese state oil companies, already among Iran's most important crude customers, held the strongest negotiating position of any buyer in the strait. As the number of countries willing to engage the system grew, Tehran's isolation decreased and its leverage increased. A waterway that 4 decades of American naval presence was supposed to keep freely open was now operating a 2-tier access system. Ships that secured passage moved. Ships that could not remain at anchor, canceled voyages, or relied on limited pipeline and alternative terminal capacity outside the Gulf. adding weeks and tens of millions of dollars in disruption costs to every affected operator. The United States response came on April 13. Admiral Brad Cooper, as CENTCOM commander, oversaw the military command responsible for implementing a naval operation specifically targeting Iranian coastal trade. American warships intercepted vessels moving to and from Iranian ports. Trump announced a proposed 20% transit toll on all commercial vessels passing through the strait in exchange for American naval protection, a proposal subsequently revised after legal and diplomatic pushback. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi rejected the entire framework. Tehran has always been the guardian of this strait, he said, and will remain so permanently. Two competing systems on the same 33 kilometers of water. Now it is time to meet the three power centers that help determine what you paid at the pump. The first operated out of Tehran. Alireza Tangsiri was the commander of the IRGC Navy. He had overseen Iranian naval operations in the Persian Gulf for years before the 2026 crisis. He was not a politician and he did not give press conferences to Western journalists. As IRGC Navy commander, Tangsiri oversaw the force controlling Iranian naval operations in the strait. The access and vetting system that determined which ships moved and which ships waited operated through the organization under his command. On March 26, 2026, Israel announced that its forces had killed Tangsiri in an attack near Bandar Abbas. Within days it became clear that the system operating through his command was not dependent on his continued presence. His successor, whose name has not been publicly confirmed, inherited a functioning access architecture. The toll booth did not close when Tangsiri died. It kept processing vessels. The second power center operated out of Tampa, Florida. Admiral Brad Cooper commands U.S. CENTCOM. As CENTCOM commander, Cooper oversees the military command responsible for implementing the blockade and wider American operations in the region. Decisions made through that command influence shipping risk, available supply, and global oil prices. Every determination about how aggressively American warships enforce the Iranian port blockade, which vessels receive naval escort, and how much military presence is maintained in the Gulf flows through CENTCOM command structure. Cooper held press briefings. His name appeared in official U.S. military statements. It appeared almost nowhere in the mainstream war coverage that reached most people. The politicians appeared on the news. The command made the decisions. The third power center has no address anyone can point to on a map. It is a market. The London insurance market is one of the world's most important centers for marine and war risk insurance. The most significant underwriting syndicates operate through the Lloyd's marketplace. This market does not appear in news coverage of the Hormuz crisis. It has no public spokesperson. It holds no press conferences. But during the crisis it functioned as one of the most consequential forces determining who could actually move oil through the strait. Here is why. Tankers generally require extensive insurance to satisfy flag state rules, financing agreements, charter contracts, and port requirements. When war risk premiums rise sharply in the London market, an otherwise viable voyage can become commercially irrational. At the peak of the Hormuz crisis, war risk premiums for tankers transiting the strait reached levels that helped determine which operators could still justify the voyage commercially. No underwriter in London gave a military order. No underwriter deployed a warship. But their collective risk assessments shaped the economics of every movement through the strait. 3 power centers. 1 controlling access through a vetting and arrangement system. 1 controlling military pressure through blockade operations. 1 controlling commercial viability through insurance pricing. Between them, these 3 systems influenced the global price of oil every single day of the Hormuz crisis. Not OPEC, not the oil companies, not the politicians whose faces were on the news. And then there is the question of who benefited. The crisis was devastating for countries most dependent on Persian Gulf crude. For others it created opportunity. Higher prices and disrupted Gulf supply improved the competitive position of American shale producers and LNG exporters, who moved into supply gaps left by disrupted Qatari and Emirati routes. The companies that gained market share during the Hormuz crisis were headquartered in Houston, Rotterdam, and Singapore, not Riyadh or Abu Dhabi. China took a different kind of advantage. Beijing and Moscow together vetoed the UN Security Council resolution on the strait in April 2026. Chinese buyers remained among Iran's most important outlets throughout the crisis. As Tehran's alternatives narrowed under blockade pressure, their bargaining power increased. potentially allowing them to demand more favorable terms. The sanctions architecture the United States spent years building had a structural gap in it the size of China's energy appetite. This is what controlling the Strait of Hormuz actually means in 2026. Not a single country with a hand on a valve. A negotiated, transactional, layered system. An IRGC access mechanism. An American military command running a port blockade. A London insurance market pricing the risk of every voyage. Asian buyers whose leverage grew as everyone else's options narrowed. All of it operating simultaneously, invisibly, while the news cameras focused on the military confrontation in the background. The last time you filled up your car with gas, all of this was happening. The number on the pump was not random. It was the output of a system built by people and institutions whose names you did not know this morning. You know some of them now. There are more. There always are. The people pulling the strings do not do press interviews. We find them anyway. Subscribe to Who Runs Everything.